Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wine and Wealth. I'm your host, Joe Stephens, certified financial planner. And today we have a really special guest, Arjun Dewan. Arjun is the CEO of Shannon Ridge Winery. So I'm just thrilled to have you on. We're actually old friends too, so it makes this even more exciting. Arjun, take me back to the beginning and tell me your first experience with wine or spirits, or how you even got into this, or why you got into it.
It's great to see you, by the way.
Yeah, same here.
I didn't intend to get into the business, probably like a lot of other people. I was an economics major. I went to college on a soccer scholarship. I had a dream to play pro. Didn't quite make it, just wasn't good enough. Wish I could blame it on an injury. I did play a little bit in Italy after college.
Wow.
Got a little bit into wine then.
Okay.
Came back and a couple of years later got engaged and had to decide what to do with my life. At the time, I knew a gentleman through soccer.
Yeah.
I coached his son, who happened to be the general manager at Peerless Importers in Brooklyn. And he said, "You'd be great in sales." And I said, "I would be terrible in sales, and I have no idea about this business."
Yeah.
And he wanted me to come in for an interview for, I don't even know what.
Yeah.
I've never waited tables. I worked retail, but in clothing, never in alcohol. So I was not a typical hire. He knew my work ethic. At the time, my fiance, who is now my wife, this year's 25 years.
God, congrats.
Crazy. This
It's awesome.
Don't ask me the date. No, I know the date. I'm just joking.
I hope so.
My father-in-law, coincidentally, was in the business, but on the finance side.
Okay.
Just total coincidence. He was with a supplier,
Interesting.
Sidney Frank.
Yeah, cool.
And so I went to ask him his advice before the big interview. And he said, "Whatever you do, say the word depletions about 4 times." I said, "What's that word mean?" So long story short, I got a job as a merchandiser.
Okay.
And I started, they gave me a red Chevy Venture minivan, a feather duster,
Yep.
a suitcase with starbursts,
Nice.
and a box cutter, and said, "Go."
Love it. Yeah, that merchandising is probably the most common way for people to get started on that side.
And I was lucky because it was a wine merchandising route, which is very rare now.
Yeah.
It was a wine-only division.
Okay.
And they paid for me to go to the windows on the world before the Twin Towers.
Wow.
Before 9/11. It was a year before 9/11. It was 2000. So this is my 26th year in the business.
Okay.
25 years married, and I started in 2000. So
Wow.
I was very lucky to have gone to my first wine. It was really my first wine education.
Yeah.
Was going there thanks to Peerless Importers and thanks to being a merchandiser, which is pretty cool.
So did you get to meet Kevin Zerali?
Yeah. And even to this day, we know each other. I would call us business friends.
Yeah.
I think he would pick up my phone, but at least he would return my email.
Wow.
But we're acquaintances, and I still remember the lessons, and super exhausted after a day out in Nassau County merchandising and having to schlep all the way down to Wall Street, but then getting up there, and he was so energetic and he broke it down so simply that I still remember the lessons to this day.
That's cool.
So I got lucky.
One of the first wine books I bought was his book.
Yeah.
You know, chock full of knowledge. So, yeah. So, Peerless, so where were you based? So, Peerless, you were based on Long Island, or?
We were living in Queens, in Sunnyside. The office was in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, which if Queens and Brooklyn, it's pretty convenient because it's basically Greenpoint Avenue. It's not that bad. But my territory was Nassau. And then when I got a sales route, it was Nassau, Suffolk, and a little bit of Manhattan and a little bit of Queens. So depending on the day, where I would be. But my first entry into the wine business was retail, and it was Long Island, Manhattan, and Queens.
Got it.
When I got a route.
Just off premise.
Just off premise.
Point.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. And merchandising, and then at Peerless, you got a sales route.
Got a sales route
Okay.
when the time came up. I'll never forget my first important meeting as a merchandiser where you can't haze people anymore. But back in the day, no one touched the dirty glasses, the spit buckets. That was all my job. Pack out the sample room. And I remember one of the other merchandising, you grab the spit bucket. If it's a little too heavy, it would be gross. But I got a route and it was 100% commission and great experience. It was a little scary at first, but after a few months, I started to really love it, particularly because I got to really know the customers and it just became a nice, if I did the right thing by them, I would get orders and then I would do tastings or show up late. drop off a check for them. I started to learn about what business relationships were all about.
Yeah.
And I had good mentors. I was lucky. I had some good bosses my whole life. I got pretty lucky that way.
Cool. So Peerless, I'm familiar, but not intimately familiar. What's their book like? What's their main focus? Are they mainly wine driven, or do they have beer too?
There's not a lot of beer, different laws in New York.
Yeah, right.
But
right. Okay.
Peerless, which is now Empire Merchants, it's just one of the big houses,
Yeah.
big books, anywhere from Gallo to Bacardi, and I don't know what's exactly there now, but it's one of the big ones in the country, like an Allied or a Fedway.
Got it. Okay. So you get your first sales route, put your current hat on, or maybe a previous hat on for a second. What do you think makes a highly successful salesperson? Because I could give you my opinion, but I'd love to hear it from you.
I'd love to hear your opinion, but if you want to hear mine first.
I do.
I got lucky. I'll tell you three things.
Okay.
Or two things. There was a gentleman by the name of Alan who worked for Jack Poust and Company. If you remember the brand Saint Hilaire. So this gentleman taught me a valuable lesson when he rode with me. Number one was 95% of the job is enthusiasm and positivity and showing up in person. Everything else doesn't matter. You literally show up and people really appreciate that. This is a mom and pop business. It's not anymore nationwide, but still in this area. And if you show up when you say you're going to show up and you are enthusiastic, it goes a long way. He taught me that.
That's great.
The other person, Lisa Milano, is still in the business and taught me, was a senior salesperson, very successful, and let me ride with her. And I hope she sees this because she'll smile. She said, go spend $100, go to Staples and get a laminating machine immediately. And I did. And literally the other week, I recommended it to somebody. So it still works to this day for your shelf talkers and your point of sale, because it was all about pride in the work. That was all about taking pride. And I think time management. I really think positivity and showing up is key. And lastly, I have a saying, let's try to do what we say we're going to do. Somebody taught me that if I could just say I'm going to do something and it happens, the customers are usually surprised. And so unfortunately or fortunately, that worked for me. So it was a matter of just doing those things. Beyond that, you can teach everything else. Yeah. We can teach people about wine, about beer, spirits, non-alcoholic, but those qualities are qualities that has to be, the person has to decide to be like that. And look at yourself. You're super positive, you showing up early all the time. When you and I got to know each other, your personality, by the time we entered the store, we knew you were there.
Thanks.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, enthusiasm, key word. I always enjoyed the reps that came into our store that had a positive, just even a smile on their face, right? Like, life is short, man. Like, we're selling wine here.
Yeah.
Like, let's have some fun, you know? I mean, it's a little bit of that, but showing up when you say you're going to show up and doing what you say you're going to do. It's amazing how those little basics over the course of, a few years, you measure them and you're like, that's the guy I want to do more with because he consistently does what he says he's going to do.
Right.
And it matters.
I think these are life lessons. I mean, you have 4 sons, I have 3.
Yeah.
So we have 7, hopefully, weddings to look forward to one day. I will tell you that the 2 things, and I don't preach to my kids, they have YouTube for that now, unfortunately. When we were kids, we couldn't fact check our fathers.
Yeah. We had to take their advice and just run with it.
But I try to, through many mistakes as a father, stick to 2 things: be kind and work hard. Those are the 2 things. And if you ask my 3 sons, what are the things that dad always says? Be kind. Those are my 2 rules, if you will. Everything else flows from there.
Yeah.
And I think if a sales rep or a sales consultant that's on commissions in this business, even with the headwinds that the industry is facing, because it's all about, you've got to steal share, but even as a rep, that's what it was all about, also fighting for what's on the shelf and on the floor. If you're kind and you work hard, chances are luck will go in your way.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I love what you say to your boys, because I say the same things, except I always say be on time, because I think it shows a lot of respect. And so I preach that, and I think it's really important, always be on time. So
that's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so after Peerless, where do you go from Peerless? What happens next?
I was probably a bit overly ambitious.
Okay.
I was lucky. I was part of a class, if you will,
Okay.
of people that came into Peerless between 1998, 99, and 2001, 2.
Okay.
They're all pretty much senior managers somewhere.
Okay.
But we all started as merchandisers or
That's cool.
middle managers. So it was very competitive.
Yeah.
So I was a very competitive person, being an athlete. And so I fit right in.
Yep.
I loved that part of me. It's looking back, I'm older now, that it feels exhausting. But I was fortunate enough, I chose to, when I went into management and I was doing well and I wanted to keep going. I had a vision to run a company one day.
Yeah.
The person that put that vision into me was John Esposito, who used to run Shelflin in Somerset, now Louis Vuitton, LVMH, then Bacardi. He's got his hands into many businesses, been a mentor for many. Seeing him run his business on Park Avenue, I remember I was 26 years old and I said, I want to be like that one day. And so I ended up deciding I needed to get my MBA. And the Magliocco family was kind enough to support me in that. And so I did night school for 3.5 years.
Okay.
Had my first son during that time and graduated when I was 30 from Fordham. And my first son, who I had when I was 28, was at the graduation. So that was nice.
Oh, that's cool.
And then a year later, so I was getting promoted during those times. It was a very, very exciting time. And a year later, when I was 31, we relocated with my 3-year-old and my 1-year-old to Deerfield, Illinois.
Got it.
To work for the Terlato family, which was formerly Paterno.
Yep. Okay.
So I needed the supplier experience to get there, and with the relationship with the Maglioccos, Empire Merchants at the time, and Terlato, the owners gave each other the blessing. So it was all done in the right way, and we moved the family to Illinois for 4.5 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. So what was that jump like going from distributor world to supplier world?
I failed miserably for the first 2 years.
Okay.
Coming from New York, well, first of all, personally, it was very hard on my wife.
Yeah, I can imagine. You know, pick up, move a family.
My mother-in-law, God bless her, these are Brooklyn raised, doesn't hold back. And Rachel's the firstborn of 4.
Okay.
Couldn't believe I was taking her baby to the Midwest. What's in the Midwest?
Yes.
Dust?
Yeah.
Tumbleweed? I mean, we're New Yorkers.
Yeah, where are you going?
I promised her I'd bring the family back, and of course I did. But in the meantime, so the first couple of years personally were hard on Rachel.
Okay.
Not so much on me because I was just so busy. What was hard on me was the traveling.
Yeah.
I've never traveled, and I had half the country.
Oh.
And so I made a bunch of mistakes traveling at the wrong times. I didn't know the rhythm, so I had to learn. And then the second thing was managing New York when I got there. We were with Empire, which was my old alma mater. So of course, my attitude was like, I got this.
This is easy. Yeah.
Leave it, and of course, the guy that leaves, that's the guy you razz. And so all my old friends, and I would do the same thing. I don't blame them. They gave me let's give this kid a hard time. We're not going to hit your numbers, or we're not going to get back to you. And it was a good little humble pie that I needed. Yeah. And I realized there was a world of wine and spirits outside of New York, which if you are from New York, you don't really get a gauge because everybody wants to be in the best places in New York. So you don't realize that there's all these other states and they can sell a lot of wine. I couldn't believe how much wine we were selling in Texas and Oregon and even Missouri. And all of them had different laws. So for me, that was a huge learning curve.
Okay.
Much more than I would care to admit.
Yeah.
And finally, I stopped fighting it and I settled in and started talking less and listening more. And then the last 2.5 years were great. Like I really got it.
Yeah.
And the only reason I left was because I promised my mother-in-law I'd bring the family back. The Terlatos were great to me. Yeah. I still keep in touch with them. There was no other reason. Illinois was great. My wife had a saying. She said, if Chicago was in New York, we'd never leave. So she loved it, but it was just far away from her family. And that was one of my commitments to her when we got married. But I made my bones, if you will, as a supplier.
Yeah, that's pretty. And it's such a different perspective because now you're calling on the distributor, you're going to those meetings, you're making presentations. It's different, but it's the same. I worked at Gallo and I was kind of like the liaison between the supplier and distributor. So I did some of those monthly meetings, and it's not that different than a presentation to a retailer, except now you have to motivate a lot of people. And how do you get that message across? So when you would do those meetings with sales reps, if you did those, and I'm guessing you did, how would you motivate the sales reps? How did you get them excited about Terlato's brands and things like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. When you ask that question, my mind goes to a couple of places. For those typical Friday sales meetings, I did some of them, my team did some of them. For me, coming from that place and sitting in those for so long, nothing individual or specific happens during those meetings. The behind the scenes, when that supplier touches you and reaches out and said, I heard you did this, good job.
Yeah.
That's more important than the Friday thing. So the Friday meetings are important. They're not as important today because of technology.
Right.
But back in the day, it was important to get in front of the salespeople. Brevity is important, clarity is important, and eye to eye is important.
Yeah.
The typical reading off of a slide, you have to understand there's 100 people in the room, and they've probably just tasted and spit out 50 different wines.
We're not.
And it's a Friday afternoon. So you have to read the room. It's the worst time to be talking to people about detailed information is 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I mean, I don't care if you're Warren Buffett. No one wants to be listening to something. So you have to hit them hard, be super positive, and get out. But in the boardroom with the wholesaler, very similar. You know, me coming from now at the executive position of a distributor, the attention span is very, very short. So I always coach from my mistakes. My coaching is don't go from A to Z on what you want. Let's identify the 1 or 2 maximum big subjects we want to tackle. Let's try to have the meeting before the meeting. That's a big deal. Let's get to the portfolio manager or the sales executive the day or two before. Let's get all the other stuff out of the way so that when we're there, whether it's on video or in person, we can dive in to the topic to bridge the gap. If we have a portfolio of 20 brands, but there's out of the 20, 5 are meaningful, and out of the 5, 3, it looks like we've got a plan, then the whole meeting should be about those 2 brands. Because then we would have engagement, collaboration, and idea sharing. Otherwise, to go from A to Z on all 20 brands, nothing gets done. So that's the approach. And then lastly, for the supplier, the last element is there's going to be 1 or 2 or 3, depending on the size of the wholesaler, people that are clearly your champions, that are going to say, call me tomorrow. I'm going to tell you how to really get it done. Those people are invaluable. And I could literally name them. I was joking, I was going to make bobbleheads of each one, like to honor them, because they are legends in their business and in their state. And without them, you get the runaround. So they are able to cut through that proverbial red tape. But all of this comes down to relationship skills. And you got to keep your eyes up. If the eyes are down, one may miss some of those key things, which again is a life lesson.
Yeah, it's true. There's some gold in there, though. That was great. People that are listening to this should take that and run.
I've got a whole book. But thankfully, because I've had good bosses, so I was learning and listening. And also the distributors being at Terlato, the diversity, seeing Southern Glazers and R&DC and others, and looking at some of those people and say, and taking just bits and pieces and honing my own playbook, which thematically ended up being be short, be brief, be clear, 1 or 2 topics max, but rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's been a big reason why I've had a blessed career so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. So before we go from Chicago back to here, to home, what would you say is interesting about selling wine outside of the tri-state area? Because it is, I've talked to people in Florida, I've talked to people in California. It's very different. What would you say, in your words, is maybe 2 or 3 key differences? And listen, relationships are relationships, right? I mean, you have to have them, but is there anything else that's really stands out to you?
Yeah, only everything. People may say, well, Florida's the Wild West. It's not.
Yeah.
People from New Jersey and New York and Connecticut say it's the Wild West, but it's really not. The two things, and I hope I don't get in trouble by saying this, but laws in the country were made by wholesalers, not by retailers. Laws do not benefit retailers. Let's just be honest. These laws do not benefit consumers.
That's right.
Either.
Couldn't agree more.
So during Prohibition, certain organizations and companies were able to come out of Prohibition and create the 3-tiered system. It's actually a 4-tier system. And in some states like Texas, it's a 5-tier system. It is what it is. But outside of the Northeast, the methods how to price and go to market, there's a few more ways. I think the biggest difference is there's not published pricing in most of the states. The other difference is you can be discretionary. Now, people think in states like Florida, you can give Publix one price. You actually can't. It has to be available to everybody. People don't really understand that. The laws in the other states are pretty strict. The big difference is the published pricing, I think, and the channel pricing. So those are the two big differences. In a lot of states, not all, you don't have to technically publish. It has to be available for everybody. And the second is that you can offer a restaurant a different price. Not in all the states, but I would say in half or more. Everything else, it's pretty prohibitive. But those two things alone make people in New Jersey, New York. I know those two states intimately. There is a bit of a FOMO, and it's not an even playing field. Lastly, I would say that Florida, Illinois, California, you may be able to do a few more things to get business done, but so can everybody else. So it's not like you're the only company that has that advantage. So if everybody can do it, guess what? It takes it away. I would say it's just as hard to do business. In my opinion, it's fact that this area of the country, it's a bit extra restrictive because it's a bit of the historical hub of the wine and liquor business in the country. And so I don't have any ideas on this will change one day. I think it's fine. I think you have to love it, embrace it, and lean into it. Fighting it does nothing. I think understanding it deeply, it can be a lot of fun. You know, New Jersey has some really interesting laws.
It does.
I am very proud to say that I learned from really good people on those laws. Bobby Harmlin and Corey Bronstein and the people at Allied. Unfortunately, Seth Brown, God rest his soul, who passed away, taught me a lot of the ways we can go to market. And we were able to get a lot of great product to retailers. It is different. I will say, though, those other states have to sell to grocery stores. So I do think that if one day that happens, a lot of those laws would also flow with that. But what do I know? I'm just one person, so.
No, that was great.
Definitely different, though. You know?
One other point to go back on really quick. You said there's a rhythm in Chicago that you felt. Can you walk me through what you meant by that?
Yeah, it's a good question. What I meant by that is that after the first 1 or 2 years, I was going about my business in the wrong way. I started to understand how to travel in waves. So there are times where you need to be at a wholesaler. Planning times. November, December are not those times. January, February, specifically February, March, January, that time period, somebody who has a multi-state territory, they need to be at their distributor planning for the year, if it's a calendar fiscal. The next wave would be the summertime. So that Q1, Q3 are the two key times where one should be out. That Q2 period, specifically graduations, June fiscals, as you know very well, were dominated by a Diageo or a Pernod Ricard. Not anybody's fault. Kudos to them. And then the summer, you can go back in and plan work. And then getting into October, November, not a good time to be part of, be in the distributors because of just the rush of the holidays. I started to understand that rhythm, which also meant that I could be home more, which is good. And so the efficiency of it was something that I learned, but it took a while. Again, I know it doesn't seem like that long ago, but 2006, 7, 8, 9, this was all fire by trial. This was all on the job training.
Yeah.
I would follow some of the other people at Terlato. There wasn't, you didn't go on YouTube to find out how to do these things.
That's right. Yeah.
Or you didn't ask ChatGPT, I'm a new supplier and how do I travel? And I'm sure it will lay it all out for you. And plus I was probably a little bit too brazen to listen to anybody. So I had to make my own mistakes. I'm different now, but
yeah.
I was still very much an ambitious young person at the time.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Great point. I mean, what a different time to be in the industry right now with AI. And, I remember when I first started Gallo and I was like the specialist and they were like, here's your list of accounts, figure out your week. And I was like, okay, where do I even start?
Yeah.
Do I go out with reps? Do I go in on my own? Like, how does this work? Now you can just take all that data and it'll figure out the days and, the time frame and how long it takes to get from this account to that account. And I didn't even know these towns in New Jersey, I was from here. And so AI has definitely changed so many things. And I don't even think people in the industry are talking about it enough, honestly, but that's another podcast. So, and then you mentioned one other thing that I thought was really interesting. You said there's 5 tiers in maybe some states. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And again, this is Arjun speak.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But I don't like to speak boardroom.
Yeah.
I'm beyond that. It speaks simple and plain. But first of all, you've got the manufacturer in any state, which is the winery, whoever makes the product.
Yep.
Then in our industry, you have the wholesaler. Now, in other countries, you don't. England is a good example. Italy is a good example. The manufacturer goes straight to the retailer.
Yep.
Then you have the retailer, which would include a restaurant or a bottle shop. Then you have the customer. So that's 4.
Yep.
We obviously don't include the customer. We have 3, which is supplier or importer, distributor, retailer. In states like Texas, they have a class B situation where the retailer actually is the distributor to the restaurants.
Oh, wow.
So a restaurant does not buy from the wholesaler. A restaurant has to buy from the retail. There are retail chains. And by the way, Texas is a wonderful place to sell wine.
Okay.
The sophistication of the wine business in Texas is awesome.
Okay.
Partly because they have their own wine industry there. They have great wine out of Texas.
Yeah.
But there are chain stores, and I won't mention names, that have 10, 20, 50 reps that work for them that just sell to restaurants.
Wow.
From their store inventory.
That's really interesting.
And I'm being very simplistic about it.
Yeah.
But there are 1 or 2 states like that. And so that was my version of a 5th tier.
So when these on-premise establishments buy from these retailers, is there a markup? Or because they can't go directly to the wholesaler, correct?
I believe there's a markup, yes. Yeah, similar to Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But it's not a control state.
Got it. Yeah.
It's not a control state. But sometimes the distributor, if they're lucky enough to make a placement in this store, and the store may want them to come in and do a training to the people that will be selling to the restaurant.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a whole, I mean, it is wild because the average person that has never been involved in this industry thinks it's very simple. It is so fragmented. It's unbelievable.
But also it's, a store driving a mile to go get their product is just as arbitrary as a distributor selling to the corner bistro.
100%.
Everything is just, the laws are so arbitrary that the purest example of commerce, let's talk commerce for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm an economist at heart. If I sell you 1 apple and I charge you $1, and then you say, then tomorrow, Arjun, that apple you sold me was freaking delicious. I want 10, but I want to pay 90 cents. Wouldn't that be a good deal? But there are laws out there that don't allow that. That is anti-commerce. Let's put it that way. I don't want to be, that's not political, that's economic.
Yeah, it is.
If you want 1,000 apples from me and you ask for a better price, wouldn't that behoove me to give you a better price?
Yeah.
But there are, as we know, there are some alcohol TTB laws that prohibit some of that.
Yeah.
And that seems a bit counterintuitive, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't dwell on it because I don't believe in worrying about things I can't specifically control. I'd rather learn and be one of the ones that understand it deeply. But it just, on the surface, it seems a bit counterintuitive to the idea of commerce, specifically if you're a merchant.
Oh, yeah. I remember when we were in retail, there were so many things that I just never understood. And you try to get answers. And I actually met with a couple legislators back then. I didn't realize I had a passion for that, but I did. And there was this whole craze with growlers. And
Yes,
there was
I remember.
a certain type of license that you had to have to sell growlers in New Jersey. And for those of you that don't know, growler is basically draft beer and that gets placed in a container and sealed, and you could leave a retail establishment with it, but you needed a certain type of license and they were very limited, and it just really didn't make sense because you're still selling a sealed container. But at the end of the day, we have to work within these guardrails that we're given, and it is what it is, and you can fight your case, and that's that.
You and I, after this,
Yeah.
we'll go have lunch in downtown Ramsey.
Okay.
If we want to buy an empty space and create a restaurant and want a liquor license, we both know it'll cost north of $250,000.
Easily.
If we drive 4 miles to Suffolk, New York, and do the same thing, it would be less than $50,000.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Arbitrary.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so you leave the Midwest, you're back on the East Coast. Is this the point where you join Allied?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
And you come into Allied as a...
As a director of sales for the fine wine division.
Got it. Okay. And I think that's when we met.
That's when we met. That's correct. People wanted to meet me because, and people were laughing. They say, "You'll see." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Oh, you have DRC, Domain Romani Conti. People will call you and you have this allocated item and you have this." And I said, "Okay, I remember this from New York."
Yes.
Okay. And so people found me.
We did.
Yes. Yes.
People did find you.
Yes.
What was cool was you got out in the trade pretty often, I felt. And that's unusual.
It was, again, thank you for saying that. I take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the training I had going back to the merchandising training, enthusiasm, showing up. It was a culture at Peerless during that time and Empire to be out in the field.
Yeah.
In fact, if you were a sales rep, there was nowhere for you to go in the office. Yeah. Some distributors had desks, cushy payphones, and we purposely didn't because we wanted our people out. So that was our job. I would stop by for samples or point of sale, but I was out. So it was just ingrained. And then working at Terlato, Tony and Bill Terlato and John were also very much customer facing. The amount of money that company spent in a good way on travel was mind-boggling because they believed in what I came to learn, what's called a 3-foot conversation. This is a 3-foot conversation. Yeah. And I'll give my good friend, the president of Dreyfus Ashby, John Caruso, who actually lives in New Jersey, that credit because he taught me that phrase, 3-foot conversation. I will give him credit because I use it all the time now. And so that was embedded in me. I'll tell you a funny story. When I had the opportunity to work at Allied, and it was thanks to the gentleman who hired me as a merchandiser because he was at Allied. He had left and gone to Allied. His name was Jim O'Connor, retired, wonderful, wonderful man, blessing to me and my family. And he said, "Hey, I think they're looking for, didn't you say you wanted to move back?" And I started to kind of bang on the door, and I met with the owners. And originally they were thinking about, because of my experience, potentially a vice president-ish position. And I was a little skeptical because coming from a merchandiser and a sales rep, I wouldn't have a respect for my new boss if they don't know any of the customers. And New Jersey, by far, if you don't know customers. So I said, why don't we start me out here? Let me just run one division because then I can get to know the street because I've never wholesaled in New Jersey. And it was the best thing that ever happened because that was the year that I got out. And I really learned. So then when I was lucky enough to get more responsibility, it made sense because I knew the way of the distributor. I knew how to get things done. I knew the system and I knew the top customers. So it was in hindsight, I think I finally started to settle down and have some humility. So then I realized I need to do this right. I don't want to just do this because of the title. Titles don't really matter.
Okay. So I think we left off. You were telling me a little bit about Allied, you're getting out in the trade. You come in as this VP in the fine wine division. Now you're back here on the East Coast. So walk me through, because I think after Allied, you end up going out on your own for a little bit too, right?
Well, I went to Winebow in 2016. So I was roughly 6 years at Allied.
Okay. Wow.
And it was probably the best company from a culture standpoint that I have worked at.
Interesting.
The family and the people there
Yeah.
are really wonderful, to be
Yeah.
quite honest.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful experience there.
Yeah.
I did.
That's great. I mean, I know a lot of people over there, and I have to say I agree. There's
Yeah.
great.
I'm the one who left.
Yeah.
I needed more. If you think about it, New Jersey does not have a city. You're buttressed by Manhattan and
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yep.
In the wine business, not having a metropolitan center, it was a little stifling. And I was looking for a little bit more action again, I suppose. So it was really hard decision. I think, I left when I was 39. I'm 49 now.
Okay.
I think if I was 49 then, I wouldn't have left. I would have hugged on to that
Yep.
job for dear life because the company and the culture were that good.
Yeah, that's cool. And I agree. There's great people there. I've met a lot of great people along.
There's still wonderful people there. It's a
Yep.
great company.
Yep.
The families are tremendous.
Yeah.
Like the Terlatos, like the Magliocos. I got really lucky. I've worked for families pretty much my whole career,
Yeah.
and my family has been fortunate.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes this industry so incredibly fun to be a part of is it is very family oriented. I mean, there's a story behind every brand, every bottle, every label, right? There's some type of story of how it got there, why it got there. And I think, that's what I always loved about it was people, meeting people, talking to people, hearing their story. So then you leave Allied, you join Winebow. Winebow takes us to which point?
I was missing the city life a little bit.
Yeah.
I was missing traveling.
Okay. Yeah.
I had been, and so I took a risk. And I had looked at several different companies, and an opportunity came up with Winebow.
Yep.
Winebow had recently gone through a tremendous amount of mergers and acquisitions and had become a much bigger company. And so I got the opportunity to move back into the city,
Okay.
office-wise. I stayed in Ramsey and manage 3 states to start.
Okay.
And so that was a great opportunity. I've never managed Connecticut, going back and managing New York.
Yeah.
And being based in Manhattan and then still retaining New Jersey, it felt like a nice step for me.
Yeah.
It was a great opportunity, so I took it.
Cool. What year did you join Winebow? When?
Summer of 2016.
2016. And you're at Winebow for what period of time?
9 years
9 years. Wow. Okay. So through COVID.
through COVID.
Yeah. So that was probably interesting. So you weren't going into the city at that point, right? You're basically here a little bit.
It was hard to sit at home.
Yeah.
When you have your sales reps out on the street
Yeah.
and the warehouse people
Still.
are still doing what they do,
Yeah.
and the retailers, your friends or your customers are still working, sitting at home doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So I did do home office.
Okay.
I never fully acclimated to it. Funny enough, I bought my first home office desk 2 years into COVID. I guess I was in denial. Dining room table, some little table over here. A lot of people adopted quick and set up these very elaborate home offices,
Yep.
which quite honestly, I should have done.
Yeah.
But I just felt like I need to be out.
Yeah.
So I was figuring out ways to be out.
Yeah.
It's really not in my nature to sit at a desk all day long. It's never been good for me, not who I am. But I tried, but some of it was in vain. I mean, I would go into the city
Yeah.
and I'd be the only one in the entire office. And that's also not very productive. So it was productive probably more for my wife, for me to be out of the house.
Yep.
So yeah, COVID was not great for me with my personality. I felt for my customers and the warehouse people and the drivers. Like, why should they be out there and not me?
100%.
So I tried my best. I'm not sure I did great during COVID. It was a good learning experience. The business did better than I did.
Business went wild during COVID.
Yeah.
Not to go off on a tangent, but I think it kind of gave this false sense of security to some of these brands because things just exploded. Everybody was home drinking, and there's some real headwinds right now.
From an going back to my economist roots, when things are happening in society, it is human nature to think this is how it's always going to be. When things are great, we tend to think things are going to continue to be great economically.
Yeah.
When things are terrible, we're never going to get out of it. And really, in the long arc of life, it cycles. But it's hard to anticipate that.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's very few people that are able to financially capitalize on that, because it's so hard to have that type of outlet.
Yeah.
It is our natural instinct to whatever is happening to me today, this is how it's always going to be.
1,000%. That's spot on advice, actually. Okay, so Winebow, 9 years, almost a decade. And then what happens after Winebow?
I had the opportunity had a wonderful experience there. Had the opportunity to go out on my own. Clay Shannon of Shannon Family, who you mentioned, who I'm currently employed with, was one of my first clients. And in effect, I would say I stumbled into a consulting business that started with Clay calling me and saying, "What are you doing, kid?
Yes.
Come do this and do this for me." And I said, "Okay." And then there was another person and another person. So for about a year, I started an S Corp and started a consulting business, which was a wonderful learning experience, financially very rewarding, very validating from an ego standpoint, because, oh, somebody wants me.
Yes.
Okay, I can add value. I could see the value I can add. Long term, I realized there were some more needs luckily at Shannon Family of Wines, and we ended up arranging a full-time scenario, but the consulting was going quite well, actually. In fact, better than I expected.
Yeah.
What was the downside? I've always been a team person, with soccer, and then didn't have that locker room feel. I like to be a motivator, a coach, but I was on my own.
Yeah.
Again, 48 years old, not sure I was ready to be hitting the golf course at 3 p.m. and consulting.
Yeah.
Because in consulting, there's a lot of projects, but I wasn't going as deep as I would like to.
I see.
So the fulfillment was a little bit different than seeing a project through. I would help start projects. I might help finish projects.
Yeah.
But I wasn't part of the core team, and it was cool for a while, but when their opportunity arose to get back in the mix with Clay Shannon, it made a lot of sense to me. So I'm having a blast right now.
Cool. So that takes us to present day.
Correct.
CEO of Shannon Ridge.
Yes.
A question. What financial advice could you give someone that is thinking about going out on their own and maybe starting a brand or doing consulting and leaving that W-2 salary type of position? Hey, you got to figure this out on your own. Is there any advice, because you went through it, that you could give someone?
I recommend everybody to do it. I am so happy I did it.
Yeah.
I think it is the purest sense of believing in oneself.
Yeah.
What is my advice, though? One is to try it. Two is somebody gave me a great piece of advice. One of my mentors I had lunch with as I was getting into this, and I said, "Looks like I can make this, but health insurance, what do I do?" And he says, "What do you mean?" And I said, "What do I do?" But he goes, "Here's a great idea. You freaking buy it. What's your problem, kid?"
Yep.
And I said, "Oh." So I think that there's a block in society, certainly with me, about the securities. And let's face it, I could have a W-2 job with health insurance and tomorrow I get laid off. What's the difference?
Right.
So you just buy it.
Great point.
I would say that you have to just try it. So a lot of times necessity is the mother of invention. In these industry times, this is going to spawn a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities. Distributors are consolidating.
Yeah.
They have to. It's a good thing. Wineries are consolidating. What does that mean? There's going to be a bunch of people like me that have 20 plus years, good contacts, like our relationship, and that can take care of 5 to 10 brands, maybe build a portfolio, maybe put on some 1099 people, and go and help these brands like the old days.
Yeah.
And that's also going to help the big distributors because they don't have time for those brands. So I think it looks like, not that I think, I'm observing that there's a bunch of Arjuns popping up that may have a little mini company that could be the next Peerless or Allied.
Yeah.
And the industry needs that. And I think that when one feels in these headwinds that, hey, I had a job yesterday and today I don't because they just can't afford me, the universe might be presenting an opportunity. I don't necessarily think it takes any more than just shuffle your feet. Take one brand on, see how it goes. Take the next. It's not as complicated as people make it out to be. A lot of people like to create mystery around what they do because it makes that person feel important. It's actually not that big of a deal. If you could run a route, you can run a business. There's definitely risk, but the risk is in your head, in my opinion.
Great advice. Cool. Okay, we're going to wrap up with 3 questions, okay? Can you tell me a low point in your journey to get to where you are today? Rapid fire.
The 2 years before joining Terlato at Empire, I was young. I had a bigger position than somebody normally would when Charmer and Peerless merged. I was not given the cover needed, and I had some adversity, with some prominent figures of the newly merged company, and it was very difficult to navigate it. And I wouldn't trade that experience for anything today, but it was very difficult for a young executive to be able to navigate, and it was almost cost me my marriage. Because of how I was dealing with it. It was a very difficult situation. And I was working 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, but not being productive at all. So there was some back of the office politics that were happening that I didn't handle well because I was young. 10 years later, I would have handled it differently. But I'm blessed with that experience.
You learn.
Because it's going to happen.
Exactly. What's your favorite wine from Shannon Ridge?
Wow, there's so many good ones. I think the Ovis means sheep in Latin. The Ovis Cabernet is by far the best, and there's a bottle. The Ovis Cabernet is by far my favorite wine at Shannon Ridge.
Cool. And last question is, where can people find you? Do you have a website, social channels? Like, where can they find you if they want to?
Yeah, I would love that. Good question. I'm not really on social media. I do have a website from my consulting days. I was able to retain www.arjundewan.com. Very simple. And that is the vehicle to find me. Otherwise, through general inquiry at Shannon Ridge website, you'll see my photo, reach out, and I would love to connect.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
We could have went for hours.
I
really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great to see you.
Yeah, you too.